Good evening. Welcome to Blanc Township Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, February 25th. Mr. Atkins, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda and the regular agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
Motion, support. Any discussion?
Supported that. Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I raised my hand before you said.
I'm sorry. What's that, Mr. Massey?
Looking at the payroll schedule, when it says payroll checks run, but there's no reason for why they was paid out. You have a copy of it?
When we get to the, tell you what, let's put under operational issues, item F if we could, just under, and have some topic on, you have a question with regard to the treasury report? Is that what it is? With regard to the payroll on there?
Yes, the payroll
Okay.
on there.
Anybody mind if we add that? As far as,
Nope. We don't add stuff.
okay. I didn't see your hand was up.
Yes,
So-
I know.
So, all those in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so we will move to citizen comment at this time. So we'll start left side of the room, and anybody care to make comment on the left side of the room? Mr. Yancho?
Yes, thank you. My name is Mike Yancho Sr. I live at 10640 Halsey Road in Grand Blanc. And looks like you guys have a lot of things on the agenda. This looks like a long meeting, but I do see on your agenda an item that confuses me. It's number 6 rather, item D. The board will discuss trustee key card access to the township. Is that something new?
Uses me too.
Any other questions, Mr. Yancho, and then I'll be glad to.
Well,
It's with regard, what a key card is it's actually.
it opens the door.
Right, and this board, we have key cards to get in, and I think Mr. Massey wanted it added to the agenda to discuss, imagine access to the building with it.
Oh, okay. But to clarify, the board members, supervisor, clerk, treasurer, and Dennis, and all have desks here and offices here, right?
Correct.
That they operate from.
Yes.
And so I have failed to see why the trustees would need a key. Do they have offices here too?
No.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how that discussion plays out. I'll be watching the video probably considering the length of this agenda, but thanks for the clarification.
Well, if you're not gonna be here, we're not gonna talk about it.
Can we change it on its position on the agenda?
I don't have a problem changing on the position, do you, Supervisor?
No, all of us watch the video.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
we'll keep it on.
Public comment is why I have to be here.
Right.
For anything that comes up that I may wish to comment on, because I can't do that later. But, you know, the video, that's a great thing for us to all watch YouTube and see what occurred.
You can text me.
I understand your concerns, Mr. Yancho, and we'll be discussing it a little bit later, and we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else on the left side of the room care to make public comment? Mr.
Heather, 72124 Porter Road. Haven't been up there in a while, but I'll just briefly do this. I want to thank the board for all their hard work they've done on Parks and Recs. You've accomplished a lot in the last few months. You really have, really have. You know, and it's And I'm pleased the way it's headed. I mean, we interviewed the director and all this, and we got it coming together. Hopefully everything works out, and I'm just so glad that it's working out and you're working so hard at it, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anybody else on the left side? We'll move over to the right side of the room. Okay, anybody care to make comment on the right side of the room? Miss Hugo? Good evening.
I'm Sarah Hugo. My address is 5545 Thrush Drive. I just wanted to thank all of you for putting Granville Estates on the agenda under the operational issues. I do understand that there was a meeting and they had discussed taking a couple of streets out of Granville Estates to get it done. But I do want to read an email that I received back in October from the township. And that was when I was kind of, I guess, arguing the fact that we got enough on our street. We had 54% on Thrush Drive that said, yes, we're in favor of having the road repaved, and 60% on Robin. And then I'm not sure how familiar you are with Granville Estates, but off of Hill Road, I live down Thrush. You drive down Thrush a little ways, turn left on Meadowlark. Meadowlark is a dirt road. Cross over to Robin, which is a paved road. Cross back over to Meadowlark, and it's a dirt road. So my only concern, obviously I would love to get my road redone, which is the Thrush Drive and Robin, but if you eliminate Meadowlark, especially from the special assessment district, you're going to have a paved road, a dirt road, cross over 50 feet on the paved road, go back to another dirt road. I did receive an email, like I said, back in October, and it says, because the estimate to do Thrush and Robin are so close to doing the entire subdivision, what are your thoughts in that of your neighborhood? Even though you only had 38% of road frontage, and I believe that it was the 38% for the entire subdivision, my calculation, and I could be wrong because I'm not a math major, but I believe I had 42 or 44% on the numbers, the spreadsheet that I put together. So it was suggested that the board just do Robin and Thrush. Then the email goes to say the other streets would never get done because the cost for those streets would be much higher. So a meeting was going to be set at that time, that week, I believe, to discuss this. I don't know if it ever was, but again, my concern, obviously I want our subdivision redone. As a whole, it would make our neighborhood a nicer place rather than driving down the paved and then having old pavement and then going back around to new pavement, going down the dirt road and going back to new. It just doesn't make sense to me just to do the two streets. So I would hope that you would consider doing the entire subdivision for the special assessment district.
Thank you, Sarah. We're going to get into this whole discussion.
I just want two things answered. When was the date on that, and who was the person emailing you back and forth?
This is when Kathy and I were emailing. It was October 11th,
Kathy.
2019. Lane.
Myself.
What date?
October 11th, 2019.
Was any of these about the roads discussed with Jeff Sears from our DPW department?
I don't know if this was specifically. I had been communicating with Jeff, which actually brings up another question. Jeff and I have spoke a couple of times in regards to the letter that was attached to the packet that my husband and I took around with the petition. And in that letter, in the packet, there was a letter from the attorney indicating that they would consider.
Attorney Laddie?
It was dated, I can't remember the exact date, but it was 2017. Now I took I'm sorry? 10/18? So I brought up the fact that, actually I think I have the email here. I brought up the fact that there was an option, and this was before I was taking the petition around because I wanted to make sure I had accurate information to give to the residents. And I brought up the fact that it said that they had the option of possibly discussing with the road commission doing a 15-year term rather than a 10-year term as it was proposed to us. And the response that I received was, the bond attorney has never issued or authorized 15 years for a township bond for repaving roads. Our bond for every repaving has been 10 years. The bond attorney has control, not the residents. So I do understand that. However, I would like to know if this was ever brought up to the road commission about paying over a 15-year term, because even though I was told this information, the last meeting that I was at, it was announced that it was approved for Grand Blanc Estates to pay over 15 years. So why was that an option for them and not proposed to us? Because I think that if it was proposed to us on the original petition, that we would have had a better chance of more people signing.
All right, we're going to address, before I'll answer that last question, just so I don't forget.
Okay.
The question, but with regard to the 15 or 10 years, it will be up to the road commission to tell us that they're going to do, and I think, we discussed that I don't think the road commission is going to do any roads that are less than that anymore. So I believe that 15 years probably, I can't speak for them,
Sure.
but I don't believe they're going to do any roads anymore that, we had one subdivision where they gave us 2 different or 3 different proposals, and they said, we'll never do that again. We're fixing it, or else we're not fixing it.
Right.
So that, but the other thing is we changed our policy, so that now when somebody comes in to speak about roads, they're going to speak directly with Mr. Sears, and everybody's going to get the same information. And any emails, whatever, are going to come from our DPW department, so there's one person responsible for that.
Sure.
But I'm looking forward to the discussion here in a few minutes, and we'll take up, and we have to bring you back. You're going to be able to stick around, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We may need to bring you back up for some
Okay.
clarifications,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With regard to anybody else that has public comment? Yes, sir.
October 18th.
Good evening.
In case I puke.
Oh.
This is the comment of what I've done.
Okay.
I had an impromptu last time, but I
I'm a
did
little bit
okay.
worried
But
it's
this,
all in bold and capital letters.
I hope you can read it.
I know what that means.
All right, my name is Mike Bacus, and I live at 5405 Robin Drive. It is my understanding that we have a strong possibility of getting Thrush and Robin Drive resurfaced this spring. Some of this is follow-up from what you just heard, because conversation is going widespread throughout the neighborhood. I understand that 52% of the lineal footage needed to move ahead has been received. I am asking the board to request that the bond attorney spread this over a 15-year term, just as they are with Grand Blanc Estates. In the letter dated 10/18/17, David Laddie said, the township, in cooperation with GCRC, is seeking to extend the financing up to 15 years for complete resurfacing, provided lenders agree. I don't believe that begging or yelling is any part of governing, but I do think trust and honesty does get things done. So as a gentleman, I'm asking the board, with all the intelligence that I see in front of my eyes, to approve the resurfacing of Robin and Thrush. And on a side statement, I also wish Sarah the best of luck in getting a seat on the board. With all the hard work and effort she has given us, the Granville Estates citizens have great support of her deserving of a seat on the board. Gentlemen, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bacus. Okay. All right. Anybody else on the right side of the room care to comment?
So I take it Sarah's running for trustee?
Okay. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Just real quick, my name is Don Morset, 5418 Thrush Drive in Granville Estates. And I just want to say thank you, Sarah, for taking the effort to to correct the situation that really needs to be corrected. And thank you guys for entertaining it tonight. So, and just a little side note, very selfish, get thrush done at least.
I hear you.
And they said go around.
Okay. All right, we're gonna have an interesting discussion here shortly. Okay, anybody else wish to make public comment? With that, we'll close public comment and bring the discussion back here to the board. And we've already passed the consent agenda with regard to future positioning. I'm not sure if there's anything in there that we need to update on right now, unless somebody has something, Mr.
Yeah,
Mansur?
so just kind of combining the business attractives and planning and zoning. So this was, I think, originally going to be kind of a separate initiatives in order to kind of see what we could do to attract more businesses and that type of things, restaurants and retail in particular. But I just want to say that as part of the development of the master plan, there are a couple of concepts called centers and corridors that are being included in that. And so these different centers and corridors are going to have a little bit of a theme to them, whether they're entertainment or retail or restaurant. So these future positioning kind of subcommittee things are really being folded into the master plan activity, which I think is really the right thing to do because because of all the talent and the professional help that we're getting to put those together. Thanks.
Beautiful. Okay. Ms. Lane?
Well, we had a zip code meeting way in the beginning, but we're coming down to the deadline of March the 11th in order to get the northern part of the township from Flint 48507 to Grand Blanc 48507. I have 53 letters from residents who have filled them out and brought them into me. And I'm willing to collect any that anybody has, but anybody that got them in the mail, please send them into the post office.
Mr. Limita, the return address for the ones that were mailed out by the post office, where do those go directly to the post office, right?
Correct. They go directly to that district manager, Joe Vollmer,
Right.
that I was working with.
Is there any way we can get a count from him on where we're at if we need to?
I can
Bolster it or-
certainly give him a call or shoot
Okay.
him an email and ask him if he's
Yeah,
got
let's find
idea.
out if where they're at. I'm hoping that they have quite a few. 53 is what they've turned in here, which that's
Right.
pretty good actually. For people turning them in here. But it'll be interesting to see how many were mailed back. Okay, Mr. Thomas.
I think what we need to do is maybe go door to door, depending on what Superintendent Limita gets for an answer. But I wouldn't mind forming a committee if we could get the letters and go door to door.
Yeah.
I would not have a problem. I mean, March 11th is right around the corner.
Right. Well, let's see what the post office has so far. I tend to believe they probably got a lot more because the postage paid on
I know
both.
that that's what we're doing ours.
So, we'll keep you posted, but I'm in agreement. Okay. Okay, let's move on to operational issues. I think we're going to have a few topics there to spend some time on. First one, the board will hear an update from the treasurer on the status of our investments with PFM. So, Mr. Guzak?
Yes, thank you. Yes, with PFM on 220, we did dissolve all the accounts. Basically, we have 6 different banks, and it was transferred into the PFM. And of course, it was put into the money market, which they're, well, not their money market, but their liquid fund at 6.5%. And then today, we had some investments that were done. Of course, we needed about $1,206,000 to cover payables today, so we did pull out $1,206,000 from that fund to cover the checks. And then I am meeting with him tomorrow to try to go over some things, because I did mention that we had $3.2 million for the Dort Highway extension, and he wants to review that, and we're trying to get a distribution on that, a schedule, before he invests out. So as far as I know, it's still in the liquid fund section, and nothing's been put into the long-term fund at this point.
So the bottom line was we're in transition right now a little bit still with moving some money over and...
Yeah, it's all over there. I've only got 2 CDs left for about $800,000. So everything, there's over 23 million that's in that account right now.
So in terms of any results of the investment, it's been too short of a period really to...
Well, the statement won't come out until March 4th, I think. And so it's only gonna show from 220, because everything was put in there in 220.
Okay.
So we won't see anything at this point, and it doesn't show any, where the accounts are. It's just all in the liquid fund section because
Right. They're working on the
they're working on it, and plus he said they might wanna change something in the investment policy. So I don't know what that's about, but I'll try to find out.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Yes,
I have
Mr.
a
Massey?
question. When was the first investment initiated?
To PFM,
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
As I mentioned, it was 220 last Thursday,
Last Thursday.
February 20th.
So here's what you're telling me. If I'm wrong, you correct me, okay?
Hmm?
You're telling me you did absolutely nothing until I mentioned it here at the meeting.
No, that's not true.
Well, you just said it was last Thursday,
That's correct.
2:20.
That's right. Because I didn't have any information. I didn't have my codes, I didn't have anything done. So it's not that I did absolutely nothing. I did it when it was first available to get it done.
But my question was, Mr. Treasurer,
Yes.
as I recall, if I'm wrong, you correct me. My question was, I asked the question for you to report out how our return on investment is doing. And at that time, you never said that we had not invested yet. I think that was my question, something
The
along
question
those-
said, you said once a month, we're gonna report that, and I
No,
wasn't reporting for that month.
no. You're turning my question on me now. I'm not gonna let you do that. My question was, at the last meeting, was you report out how our investment is going.
Right, and I expect to do that at the
Okay,
next
I said the
meeting.
return on the investment. At that time, you didn't say that we had not initiated an investment yet.
I wasn't commenting on the investment at that point in time because it wasn't done. And nothing was in place, like the supervisor indicated, it was all in transition. The accounts weren't set up, it couldn't be done.
But I can only speak for myself. I think the rest of the board may have been under the impression that the initial investment had already been taking place.
No, I
Had already
think
taken
we mentioned
place.
at that meeting that it was still in transition.
Well, you used the word transition. That was a big word.
Actually, it was the supervisor that said that, and if we did not have the account set up, that's all part of PFM stuff, okay? We can't act until it's set up and ready to go.
But I wasn't relying on the supervisor because he's not involved in it.
Well, I can't do anything unless PFM sets it up.
I understand that
Okay,
now.
they did not have it set up, so I couldn't do it.
So let's summarize, let's wrap this up in that, I think anyways, that, so all the funds have been transferred over to PFM at this point.
Yeah, as of 2/20, right,
So we're
which is
not-
the first available time that I had that I could transfer it.
Right.
And of course, it takes considerable time to do that because you just can't transfer the funds. You have to get the exact amount for that particular day. So it took all day, and luckily I got it accomplished. I didn't know if I could get it all in one day because there's different things that have to be done. Because we're going to a different bank, so certain resolutions had to be set up in place to transfer to a different bank that we were transferring to. So there's a lot of red tape and proper information that has to be done to protect our funds. And that was all done, and it took all day to do it.
Mr. Atkins?
Sorry, never mind, Mr. Supervisor. I think my question is a better fit for the payroll issue we
Okay.
added to the
All right.
operation issues.
All right. So we don't have any money remaining in CDs at this point?
No, I
it's all-
mentioned we had 2 CDs left,
Okay.
total about 800,000.
Okay.
And when they come due, I will
We'll transfer.
transfer them in, but at this
Okay.
point in time, in the process, I've been liquidating CDs. When they came due, put them into liquid accounts, because we had it in 5, 6 different banks, and had it easy, so once we got to the point we had the proper documentation and everything in place, then it was transferred, and that was the first opportunity that I had to get it in place. Because stuff was not sent to me, it was sent to other people, and I wasn't even aware that that's.
So the 800,000 in CDs, when do you think those are approximately, or,
That's out a couple more months.
okay, about 2 more months or something?
I can get the exact date, but I don't have it
Okay.
with me.
All right.
Don't we have a CD out for about a year?
Those are actually for different funds, they're not part of the general or that's for cemetery funds.
This is from your report where it says
Right.
interest rate
Yep.
risk. And it
Yep.
says,
And we have some for the 475 account also.
Mr. Lehman, so you're saying we have some that are not in there? I'm not looking at that report right now, Mr. Thomas, but.
This was the general and this was the DPW that's been
Okay.
transferred. Those other ones were locked down and they won't turn for another year. And it was in the report that I gave to you last
Okay.
week,
All right.
Tuesday.
I thought we were moving all of the funds in there, whether
Well, you
it's
can't move those are locked down, okay?
in terms of, what do you mean, when you say locked down, what do you mean, Mr. Guzak?
Yeah, but I don't know what the dollar amount is.
That they're locked down in
Well,
terms
they're in
of,
CDs,
okay,
okay?
But this one says it's 370 days left.
Right.
One says 5 years.
No, there's no 5 years.
Well, what did I read? It says 5 years. 5 years. Reserve and capital improvements may be invested. in this-
well, why don't we do this, let's put together the meeting again with our investment committee, if that would work, and we can look at the details of what's left and where we're at. Would that work, Mr. Massey?
Yes, that would work.
Mr. Atkins, does that work for you?
Yeah.
Mr. Kuzak? You all right? Okay. So rather than going through it in detail here, we'll set up a meeting and go through it with our investment committee and see where we're at with the other CDs that are remaining. Okay? Any other questions for Mr. Kuzak with regard to the PFM investments?
Good job, Earl.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, the board will consider a resolution to adopt the federal poverty guidelines for 2020 assessments. Mr. Lemata?
So this has to be done every year because the federal poverty guidelines adjust dollar amount. We have to do this as for people who, before the March quarter review, it has to be approved by the board through a resolution adopting them. And then it gives residents who are below the federal guidelines the ability to petition the Board of Review for reduction in taxes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
I have a
Massey?
question for the superintendent.
Sure.
A letter sent out to anticipate who may be eligible, are they notified?
No, most of the, most people get it. We don't send letters out to everybody that, I mean, we don't know what their financial situation is from year to year. Typically, we do see a lot of the same residents who come in year to year, but generally, they know that there's help available if they're, if they're having issues with being able to pay their taxes or getting information from other social service agencies to appeal their tax bill as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Mansour?
Mr. Supervisor, so the question I have here is this resolution any different than the one we passed last year with the exception of the poverty guideline amounts?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Chair, I move adoption of the resolution.
Support?
Okay, Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Okay, item C, the board will consider a motion to approve a conditional offer of employment for the Parks and Recreation Director. And welcome this evening, Mr. Linehan.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right. Discussion?
Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mansour.
So in reading the offer of employment, there was a date that was affixed for the start date of March 29th, which I think is a Sunday. I'd like to know if we could amend that to the 23rd, which is a Monday.
We usually, and it has been, it was the 29th, but he is able to start earlier. We put in 29th as a tentative date. We started on that Sunday payroll, so with the first of the payroll, it starts the new payroll on the 22nd, which I have amended that date into the agreement to be signed.
So we can start the 23rd?
Well, he'll
Or-
be in office on the 23rd,
Fine.
showing up for the
Okay.
23rd, but the actual payroll starts the 22nd.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Massey?
I have a question in regard to the email that you sent out, Superintendent. Reading your email that you sent out in regard to the length of time before someone comes on board, it appears to me that I read into that it takes someone, let me say it in my own words, 2 months to hire. In other words, from the initial time that you hire someone, it could take up to 2 months or longer. That's what you alluded to in your email.
No, it's actually about 1 month from the time that we're offering the position to when his start date
Well,
is.
let me repeat almost verbatim. I'm not looking at the email what you said, so you can deny what you said. You said it could take longer. You had March the 29th on this. And that's what I read, that you say it could take longer, if I read that correctly.
No, we had a tentative date, and again, we're working with the candidate. We
Yes.
ask, what date do you believe that you will be available? And please find the attached employment agreement, conditional offer of employment. Patrick has accepted a position with a start date of March 29th. He's required to give notice to his current employer. As soon as we receive the required signed release and detailed paperwork, the police department will begin the background check and should be completed before the expected start date. This is the standard employment agreement for the director level with 3-year term, all benefits as detailed. Tonight you'll be asked to approve the agreement and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
But you alluded to something in there that it could take longer.
That's I just read you the email I sent you.
Okay, I'm going back and reading it. Okay.
Okay, well, regardless, it looks like we'll have a start date of the 22nd.
Second.
22nd. So, with that, we've had a motion, it's been seconded, we had discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like to say a few words, Patrick, or?
Well, I'm really excited to put my boots on the ground and start running and figuring out how the department works and seeing how we can move it forward.
Well, on behalf of the board, we're going to welcome you aboard, and we look for great things to happen with our parks. So congratulations and good luck, and looking forward to it. Okay?
Absolutely.
And again, thanks to our committee for the work. Okay? Next item on our agenda, the board will discuss the trustee key card access to the township.
Yes.
So I know, Mr. Massey, you would ask about this.
Yes. And you had someone to come up from the audience to speak to this. I personally feel, let me speak my personally truth about leadership. I personally feel that I should not have to wait to get into this building for a meeting tonight. If I get here at 6, I cannot get into the building. Okay? If we go outside now at a certain time, we cannot come back into the building. Now, let me speak the statute to that so we'll have some background on this. The trustees, the board sets the time that we should enter into the building. On the weekend, we cannot come into the building when we have a meeting. Someone has to be here to open the door for us. So I feel as though that's not the best policy to have, that you've locked out your trustees from the building and they cannot enter into the building until a specific time, and that time frame is limited. And I think it should be from 5 to 11. 5 a.m. in the morning to 11 p.m. in the evening, and weekends.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that from anybody? Mr. Atkins?
What are our cards set to right now? I don't really have any idea.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I can tell you the history that
Well, let me ask
actually...
you, Mr. Chair, let me interrupt you for a
Sure.
moment. Everybody's backtracking now. You gonna tell me you don't know and you the one that set it up? That's what you're saying.
yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. You're assuming that I set up. I did not set up.
I did not say you.
Oh, okay. I thought you were pointing at me.
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Actually, our police are in charge of the key cards.
It was set up by Captain Bowserman.
Yeah. So anyways, just a little bit of history behind. Previously, I've served on the board as a trustee, and actually until this board, nobody even had a key to the building except for the officers. So when we had a board meeting, guess what? I waited until the clerk or the treasurer or the supervisor or superintendent unlocked the door, and I came in. So there was no access other than for when there was established meetings. In terms of the office building, we have a lot of confidential information and very sensitive information. For example, right now, if you go over in the clerk's office, you'll see absentee ballots, you'll see voter lists, you'll see voter registration cards, you'll see applications for voter registration, you'll see just lots of confidential information. You go to our assessing department, you have similar. And while this board may be very responsible and have no issue, when we set the precedence of allowing board members to have access, let's say I come in here on a Saturday as a trustee and I bring my kids with me. Hey, they sit down at somebody's desk and next thing you know, a computer button's pushed or something else that, I mean, we've got our computer system for our entire water system, our sewer system, all our water testing all takes place. We have a person that's just in charge of all the state regulation in terms of water testing, and the list goes on. So I'm not inclined to say let's open up the access to the building to even more people. Even the staff here have limited hours that they can come and go. Most of the staff are able to get in here during work hours, maybe a little bit before, but other than that, they don't have access to this building on weekends or evenings unless they're a department head or have, for example, that they're the emergency person for DPW. The police building is locked down as well, with everything from evidence rooms to you name it. So while I understand, and we can probably adjust the time for the meeting so that the key card is good for the meeting so you can get in a little bit earlier, I would not be inclined to make it so that the entire board can get in. And it's nothing against our current board, but we're setting a precedence. And just like probably the school board does not have access to every place in the schools after hours. Unfortunately, the way this building's set up is that we don't have everything locked down so that everybody's office cannot be locked. Not all the confidential or sensitive information or computers can be locked down. And so I would be opposed to it, but I would be open to taking a look at what the hours are that the key cards work prior to the meetings.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yes,
ask you a
Mr.
question?
Massey.
If I ask this question incorrectly, please correct me.
Sure.
Okay? Who gives the police, what you say his name is?
Captain Bowserman.
Captain Baldwin, the authority to set the time?
We did.
Be happy to set it whatever time you want. No one's challenge. I mean,
Well, hold on.
let's just tell us what time you want set, and I'll send them an email and it'll be set.
I'm glad you said what you said, because I think you have forgotten what you said prior to that, prior to you speaking. You said you did not set the time.
I didn't set it, but
Well, you said you gave him authority to set the time. Wasn't that what you
Okay.
said? Just said?
I did not give him personally authority.
He's been in control of the key card access program since it was instituted in the township, initially over at the police department, and when it rolled out here. He has blocks of time set depending on where the people fall in. If it's department heads had 24/7 access, employees did not have. I don't know where you guys fell in that, quite frankly. I don't know what times are on your cards. But again, if you want a different time on your cards, just tell us what time you want them to be. And I mean, it's a simple change. He just has to enter it into the computer on when your cards will access the locks.
My thoughts are that if a board member is meeting here, they're probably meeting with Dennis or myself or one of our officers, or we're having a meeting here that we'll all be here for. If there's a couple of board members want to get together, it doesn't necessarily have to be in this building. So, Mr. Thomas?
I think Dennis, or Superintendent Lehman answered my question. I've never used my key card. I believe our key cards get us into the auditorium.
Right.
And that's about it. I don't know, do our key cards work on the outside?
Yeah, all your key cards should work
During certain
throughout
hours.
the building.
But
that's
we
not
don't know
true.
what the hours are.
I can find out for you tomorrow, but I don't.
I mean,
I
that's
don't
how
know
often,
what
I've
the
never
hours
used
are.
it, so.
Mr. Atkins first.
Because it could be set up what you're talking about already, Trustee Massey.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
Because I've been in here. I cannot go through the door past the accessory department. I cannot get through that door. I come in
Again,
here
I don't know, I'm not, I don't control
Whoa.
that program, I mean, I will do, if you need to get through that door, I can.
Mr. Atkins?
It's simple, of tell us what you want, we can make that
Oh,
happen.
okay.
Instead of dragging this out, we could, because, I mean, orientation, maybe I missed that day or something, but I don't even know what my card works for. I don't know what times, so maybe we should, maybe Trustee Massey has an issue with his card. I don't think any of us can answer the questions right now of the access. I don't even, maybe a print off or.
Okay, good idea. If we can get a printout of what the access hours are right now for the board members, Mr. Lima, that'd be probably a good starting point. Then we can bring it back to the board. Okay?
Yes.
All right, very good suggestion, Mr. Atkins. Okay, we'll move on to next issue. The board will consider a resolution to set a public hearing for March 12th for the street repair special assessment district of Granville Estates.
Well, that makes sense.
So, Mr. Mansour.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
All right. So I imagine you want to have a little bit of discussion on this.
Yes.
I didn't come prepared for nothing, you guys.
I don't.
Well, let me just set the stage if I could, Mr. Laddie.
Okay.
So we have a road committee, subcommittee, and Ms. Lane, Mr. Massey, and myself met. And one of the things we talked about was we came up with a couple of different possibilities of what we would like to research. One was that we do not like the idea necessarily of making a precedence of just saying, hey, this subdivision we're going to pass a special assessment, board initiated, this one we're not. But we said, what if we had, and I think one of our residents, Mr. Erd, actually brought this up in the past, and we've talked about it as well, that if a subdivision street gets below a certain Pazer level, that we have an ordinance or at least a policy that those subdivision or that subdivision street would come before the board as far as automatically having a special assessment district set. So one of the things we asked Mr. Sears to check into was a Pazer rating for all the subdivision streets in the township, which Mr. Lima has provided a copy for all the board members so that you guys can see where every street in the township falls.
How many have, you need them?
You guys all have a copy.
We can get extras if we need any, but you can pass that one down to Mr. Lima. So anyways, we do have those. Not that we're going to look at that tonight, but I wanted all the board members to have it, and Mr. Lima. So that was one of the proposals that we were investigating, was setting a policy for that any street that comes below that level, that we would automatically set a special assessment. We also wanted to check and see if the road commission if we were able to somehow magically get Granville Estates approved if there would still be time for the road commission to pave that street. We are right at the wire. What happens is the road commission sets a budget of like $1 million for engineering for subdivision streets. Am I correct on that number, Mr. Lima? I think it was $1 million told us for engineering.
Yes.
And so they are at the limit, and this street they would squeeze this in, these streets for the engineering, if we let them know as soon as possible. I was at the Roads and Bridges meeting this past week, and I think there's a memo in your packet that explains that I was discussing the idea of a board initiated special assessment, and the topic came up that, well, hey, you can just pull a couple of streets out and amend it. You can't add to it, but you can pull streets out and amend it, and then use the signatures for those two streets. Mr. Laddie and I discussed that idea, and I know Mr. Laddie has some concerns with going that route. And so that brings us to this evening where we put it on the agenda that, given the circumstances here, that I'll let Mr. Laddie explain what is being proposed. Mr. Thomas?
Just real quick, so after we approve this tonight, then you can let the streets know tomorrow?
Let who know? The road commission?
The road commission know tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, what I've already told them that, plan on this one way or the other.
Right. So when we approve it tonight, then?
Yeah, they're aware, well, it can't be approved tonight, it's gonna be the beginning of next month, because we gotta have a special hearing.
You're exactly right.
So-
And your memo explains the situation and the unusual circumstance regarding this particular development. What you have tonight is I have a notice of public, you have a resolution in front of you that says that you're gonna set the public hearing for considering the creation of a special assessment district for Thrush Drive and Robin Drive. You currently have an estimate of $600,000, not including administrative costs or interest, and that if you adopt this resolution, and we'll have the what we call the needs hearing, the public hearing, March 12th at 7 o'clock. And in order to do that, we need to publish more than 10 days in a newspaper, and we have a notice submitted to Grand Blanc View that is set to run on Thursday. And if you do pass this resolution, then I will send an email to the View telling them to go ahead and run that. If you don't pass the resolution, or if we go in a different direction, then we'll have to pull that. So what will happen if you do adopt this resolution is we will we'll be publishing notice of the public hearing for Thrush Drive and Robin Drive for Thursday the 12th. Residents on those streets. And by the way, the assessment district was set by the DPW department, and it is just anticipates the paving on those streets. That will be set again for Thursday the 12th. One of the things that the notice contains, and this is different than if we do things by a petition by more than 50%, is language that says that people in that district, if they protest at or before our first public hearing, and they represent more than 20% of the property owners with lineal frontage on Thrush and Robin, that we are prohibited from moving forward until we receive a petition for those streets and from those properties of more than 50%. And so that notice is, that provision of the public hearing notice is different than others, because we typically require a petition. But again, you explained the difficulties in this particular neighborhood. So if you move forward tonight, you'll be setting the public hearing for the 12th, and then that will be one step closer toward moving forward.
So I wanted to cover something that Mr. Hugo had brought up, and that is, gosh, it'd be great if we could pave those other two streets. The two side streets that connect Robin and Thrush. And this subdivision has been trying to get their streets paved for probably more than a decade. I recall one of the first meetings I think I came to as trustee was we voted down paving it because basically the costs came back much higher than what we originally estimated, and so the residents said, hey, we don't want to do this at this price. So it's been a long haul. Where we're at tonight is that I think the reason that we said that we would do a special assessment of board initiated is because we could pull out the two streets, and we're really doing the work of what the people voted. The people that signed that petition voted in essence that they want their streets paved. And I think all of us are big on democracy here, and if the people vote that, hey, we want something done, and it's in their power and they're paying for it, it's tough for me to stand in their way. In order to bring the other streets in, the problem is that those people didn't vote for it. It presents two dilemmas really. One is that if we brought those streets in, it's going to set us back some time, because we're going to have to rewrite the special assessment district, and we'll probably postpone when the public hearing could be.
Correct.
Which would also mean when they can let out the bid.
Correct.
So that part, our back is up against the wall. Mr. Thomas?
During the hearing, is that where we'd go for the 15-year bond?
Yep.
Okay.
And I know that DPW is working to communicate with Road Commission, and I think, Mr. Guzak, you might be beginning communication with bond counsel to make sure that, to explore whether 15 years is an option.
So I'd like to call
Yes,
for
we
the-
always do that, and we just have to get the letter from the county stating that the property will maintain it for that length of time. That's the only key thing that I have to send to the bond attorney. If it's not in there, and previous ones, it did not have that in there, and that's why it was only 10 years in the past.
Mr. Ladd, I've got a question for you, hypothetical with regard to this. I'm not sure what the difference is in the price. What is the price for right now off the top? Do you know, Mr. Limita, what we're looking at as far as cost?
600,000.
What is it?
600,000.
600,000. So let's say that we find out that it's 610,000 or 620,000 to pave the other two streets, and you know, if we added on these two streets, it's 620,000. I'm just throwing that out, but and the residents on those streets are like, hey, we'll come up with the $10,000 or $20,000, and you know, in advance of paving. Is it possible that the and I'm just throwing out a hypothetical here, that the road commission could say, hey, we'll expand the job even, but we're only bonding for the 600,000. The extra 20,000 they're going to have to pay in advance or something like that, or whatever the difference is.
It would be, that under that hypothetical, we would be moving forward with Thrush Drive and Robin Drive with the financing at the
Right.
$600,000. If there is some arrangement that that we would have to broker, I guess, with private property owners to pay some amount of money outside the special assessment district, then that's a possibility. But that is a complicated hypothetical.
Right, I understand that. Miss Lane?
All right, I had discussions with Sarah all the way back in early 2019, and we scheduled an informational meeting at the police department on May 30th. Jeff Sears was there, a representative of the road commission, and myself, to do the entire subdivision. At that time, the estimate we had was $800,000 just for construction. And then, of course, now it's $600,000 to do these two roads. And neither one of them included the administrative costs, which Earl is trying to set up. It could be 11,000.
No, it's like 14,000.
14,000, it's been going up every year. So in either case, it would have started out to do the whole subdivision at 800,000, now it's 600,000 for those two streets. And
Well, 800,000 was for all four
all
streets.
four,
Yeah.
right, so
The
it's
600,000 is, or,
is
I mean,
for Thrush and
Okay.
Robin, okay?
So 200,000 to do the other two streets is what you're saying,
Correct,
if that number holds true today.
right.
Okay.
Plus the administrative costs, which
Right.
now Earl.
Which they're gonna pay those
estimated
regardless.
14,000.
Yeah, you're gonna have administrative fees regardless of whether we do two streets or
Correct.
four. Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to make a comment, and I think you can verify this. Anytime I receive some information from a resident regarding the streets, I always let the chairperson know that I've talked to a resident about this. This was my conversation. Furthermore, I go to the director, Jeff Sears, and I share that same information with him. Now, that doesn't mean that they always agree with me, but that means we fight among ourselves. So we fight, and then we come to some kind of agreement. Okay, where that agreement lies, we don't know until we get there, okay, like we're discussing tonight. So I just wanted everybody to know.
So I'd
And
like
Mr.
to
Massey
call
did
for the
come.
motion.
I'm
So
sorry?
I'd like to call for the resolution.
It is a resolution.
Yep, I'd like to call for the resolution.
Okay,
Support.
okay. Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansur,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. Guzak.
Yes.
Mr. Massey.
Yes.
Myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. So what this will do is it'll set in motion public hearing for the 12th, Mr. Laddie, that
Correct.
There'll be an ad in the paper.
Be ad in the
we-
paper, and the residents in the district, those that have frontage on Thrush and Robin, will be getting a letter
Right.
explaining the hearing. and hopefully we'll have some more details about the length of time.
And it is unfortunate that, I understand that we have residents here that live on the streets that won't be paved, and, pains me that your street won't be paved. My fear is that we'll go another 10 years if we don't take advantage of the signatures that we have now to get those two streets done. If they're, I didn't realize it was a $200,000 difference to pave those two side streets, but I was thinking that if it was an insignificant amount, maybe there's a way that we could, get the residents on those two streets to pay or something. But 200,000 is a bigger difference. But we'll talk to the road commission and see what that is.
Supervisor?
Yes.
I just want to reiterate to everybody and that if you have any questions about this project, the person that you speak to is
Mr. Sears.
And nobody else besides Mr.
Sears. Okay.
Nobody else. We speak with one voice, and that voice is
Jeff Sears, our director. Good point.
Yes, we changed the policy.
Okay, well, and again, thank you for hanging in there and for all your work to get this done, and we'll see everyone on the 12th, if not sooner, right?
I have one more question about this. So, what I think I heard said is that if we get to the 12th and we have 20% of the people that are on those two roads come and protest this, that will put a stop to that will halt the machine.
That's correct.
And is that different than we would have had in other situations?
Yeah, because the way you override that if we're halted, the way that gets overridden is a petition needs to be submitted to us representing more than 50% of the residents on those two streets in favor before we can take up action again. And so what we normally do is, to avoid the possibility of that 20% veto, is we require upfront a petition of more than 50% of the people in favor. So we've added there's an opportunity for us to have to go over that petition hurdle again, but it will the district just encompasses, again, the residents on Thrush and Robin.
So let me ask this question. So we're going the route of a board-initiated special assessment. If we had 20% come to us and say they don't want it, they have to have it in a written form, in a petition stating that?
No, it doesn't have to be in a petition.
No. They can show up? Okay.
They have to enter their protest in writing.
So let's say that we get that 20%. Can we then revert back to the petition and remove the two streets?
The problem with the petition, when you begin to dissect the district as it's created, is there will be a provision in the resolution creating a district that says that the board has investigated and verified the veracity of the signatures for the district as it was created. And if we overlook that, it's very certain that Dickinson Wright, our bond counsel, would not overlook that, and we'd be jeopardizing the financing for the project. That's why you have to be kind of a stickler with that petition language.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Massey.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I don't know whether you can answer it or the superintendent.
Okay.
We need to take some pictures of those two streets. I think
Ms. Hugo sent me a few.
well, I don't think everyone has seen those potholes as I have. And when I say potholes, they are holes. They are past the definition of a pothole to me.
I think we voted on this. Yeah. I'm not sure.
All right, so we're going to wrap up discussion on that. Mr. Laddie, we needed executive session.
We do. Are you done with your?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Massey, you had a question with regard to payroll or something?
Oh, yes, the payroll, where it says account payable, check run. What does that mean?
Where it's, if you're talking about the payroll check run, it means that it's just our normal payroll that we run every 2 weeks.
But it had a dollar amount, I thought. Yeah. Does that mean that's what the total checks came to?
Right, the total of the entire payroll, like 300,000 that we're talking about. Yeah, it's just, that's the bi-weekly, every 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Payroll.
Okay. Did you have anything before we go into executive session, Mr.?
I have one question on that. So on the payroll, could just explain what the IRS penalty is positive pay for $1,184.31.
So I can explain that. When we switched our bank accounts, the IRS, we process the money that we have to send to the IRS. When we switched to that positive pay system, they went to draw the funds, and even though we had made the transfer, it was right during the time that we had switched accounts. And so they got a notice that the money wasn't there. And even though then they flagged us and we're like, no, it's all set to go, but it was just it was right at the time that we switched accounts. By the time we showed them, look, we had processed ours, we'd sent the money in, but when it's the IRS, they're saying, well, it wasn't there the first time we went to draw it, so you have a penalty to pay. We called the IRS, and shockingly, they do not reverse that penalty no matter what, even though we were showing that we had the money in our account, that it was really a banking issue.
Do you have anything, Mr. Limita, before we go into executive session?
Nope.
So I have a question. Under what reason are we going into executive session? Because
Yes,
I don't think
Mr.
we
Laddie.
received any.
Oh, you did, confidential communication.
Yeah, it's like
Attorney opinion.
pages. You know, while Al's looking at that, if anybody wants to help and volunteer their time on going door to door with our zip code, like I mentioned earlier, because Jack Kilmer may be, please let me know.
And also, we're checking to see what the post office received,
Yeah.
because that 53 is only what we received, isn't what the post office received, so.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we go into executive session to discuss the attorney's
I think we gotta tell
confidential
people what
written opinion.
Seconds?
Okay.
It's definitely.
Ms. Lane?
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Muzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey? Myself,
Yes.
yes.
5-minute break.
All right, we'll start when that clock says 6:11 after then.
Hang on.